Little boy refuses to take grandma's ugly gifts for Christmas until it shockingly saves his life. A boy tosses the ugly sweaters his grandma gifts him every year into the attic until one day, nothing but those sweaters can save his life. Danny opened the gift and frowned. A sweater again? Seriously? What's wrong with Gran Esther? Danny was disappointed and protested it was silly to send him another sweater. For the last 5 years, ever since his grandmother was confined to a wheelchair, she wasn't able to visit him for Christmas but sent him a present every year. For the first year, Danny was excited when he received a gift, but when sweaters made up the gift for 4 successive years, the 11-year-old didn't even bother to show any excitement while opening the present. "Why can't she just get me something I want?" grumbled Danny. "Mom, tell her to stop sending these sweaters. I hate them." "Danny, honey, that's rude," said his mother. "You know Grandma knits them with love. The least you can do is call her and say thank you." "Really, Mom," said Danny bitterly. "You're impossible. I'm going to my room." Danny left the sweater on the living room couch and disappeared to his room. "Dad and I are going out Christmas shopping, Danny," his mom called out after a while. "Make sure the tree is decorated while we're away. You promised you'll help me." "I'll do it, Mom," shouted Danny. "You don't need to keep reminding me like a stupid alarm clock." Danny was in a bad mood, and it was all Esther's fault. Why did she send him a sweater again? He had told her last year on a call that he really wanted the PlayStation, yet she sent him a sweater. Seriously? "I'm sick of these sweaters," grumbled Danny. "I don't want to see them again." So when his parents went out shopping that day, it was the day before Christmas, he removed the sweater from the couch and tossed it into the attic like he did every year. "That's where this stupid sweater belongs. Actually, no, I'll make sure I keep it somewhere where no one can find it." In a rage, the little boy climbed the stairs up the attic, gathered all the sweaters tossed around, and stuffed them into a cardboard box. Happy that he won't have to see that sweater again, Danny smiled and decided to leave the attic. But he couldn't. The door was jammed. He applied all his force to open it but couldn't. "Oh no," he cried, terrified. "Mom, Dad, I'm stuck here. Open the door." Then it dawned on him his parents were out shopping. Danny's heart began to pound faster. He decided to shout for help through the broken window in the attic, but he was too short to reach it. "It's okay. Mom and Dad will come home soon and help me," Danny thought. He sat down on the floor and decided to wait. He waited, and gradually, afternoon became evening. The attic grew darker and colder. He shivered when the breeze blew in through the broken window. It was freezing. "Why aren't Mom and Dad back yet? What should I do?" Danny hugged his knees and started crying. "It's just so cold in here, Mom," he sobbed. "I'm freezing. I need a blanket or—" That's when it hit Danny. Esther's sweaters. He could put them on. Danny dashed to the box, took out a sweater, and wore it. He felt so warm and relieved. Since the floor was cold too, he used one of them as a mat and sat on it. But it was still cold. The city was covered in snow, and because of the broken window, the cold winds constantly bothered Danny until darkness engulfed his eyes, and he couldn't feel anything. He passed out from the cold. A few hours later, Danny opened his eyes briefly and heard muffled voices around him. "Danny, sweetheart, can you hear me?" "Doc, Danny's awake." When Danny's parents arrived home and didn't find him, they searched the whole house. Ultimately, they found him in the attic in a terrible state. He was unconscious on the attic floor, hugging one of Esther's sweaters. They called 911 and he was brought to the hospital. Danny had fainted and had a fever, and his condition may have been worse if Esther's sweater hadn't kept him warm. "Mom," Danny said weakly, "the attic door. It's locked. Mom, take me out." "You're all right, sweetie," his mother said in tears. "You're at the hospital, Danny. You're okay, child. Mommy is here, okay." "It was so cold, Mom," said Danny. "Gran Esther, she saved me, Mom. I was such a bad boy. I deserved this." "Oh, not at all, honey. It's all okay. Everything is fine." Danny learned his lesson that day. He realized he'd been rude to Esther by not appreciating her gift. Those sweaters had saved his life. So the next day, Danny video called Esther and apologized. "Merry Christmas, Gran," he said. "I wanted to say sorry I didn't call you earlier when I got your gift. I loved your sweater, Gran." "Oh, did you, little boy?" Esther's face lit up when she heard this. "Oh, I was worried you'd be sick of my knitting by now. But I was so wrong. Honey, next year, I'll get you something different. What say?" "Well, it's up to you, Gran," said Danny as he moved the phone camera away to show her he was wearing her sweater. "But I love your sweaters the most. I'm wearing one this Christmas, and I want one every year." Imagine the joy Esther felt when she heard that. She was smiling, but tears had gathered in her eyes. Esther was diagnosed with cancer that year and was given less than 3 months to live. Despite her poor health, she stayed up most nights to finish the sweater for Danny. Esther's eyes, as well as her entire body, had begun to fail her. She wanted to send one last Christmas gift to her grandson before she went to her heavenly home. So when Danny called and appreciated her gift, Esther smiled despite the tears in her eyes. She didn't want him to see her cry because she wanted her grandson to remember her smiling and happy. And before she breathed her last, she left Danny a letter under her pillow. It said, "My dearest Danny, I'm sorry, but I won't be able to send you a Christmas gift next year. I have this terrible illness, and it's keeping me from seeing my grandchild, but the sickness will never win. Even after I die, I will love my grandson. I'm sorry I wasn't able to get you. Oh boy, what do you call that game thing? That station's something. Sorry, Gran Esther has a terrible memory. Buy that for yourself, Danny. I have left you the cash in here. And look in my closet. You'll find a sweater there. With love, Grandma Esther." When Danny opened Esther's closet, he found 2 sweaters there. One of them she didn't get to finish because God called her home, and Danny burst into tears, regretting not loving her enough. What can we learn from this story? Gifts from the heart are the best gifts ever. Danny realized this after Esther's sweaters saved his life. Hug and love your grandparents before it's too late. When Esther died, Danny missed her and regretted not loving her enough.